Family. When I was in my 20s and my early 30s, I was adamant that I never, ever wanted to have kids. And, when I got into my late 30s, I started questioning that. And then by the time I hit 40, I'm like, wow, I'd really like to have kids. Well, by the time you're 40 and you're just thinking that, now I'm behind the 8 ball. And I ended up getting married at age 46, and I had a kid at age 47. I had my son at age 47, which is amazing that that was able to happen. But you know what? We weren't able to have any more kids. I would have loved to have had more kids, but we couldn't because too old. And that's sort of like the consequence of, kind of the way that I lived my life. And, this is something that's probably not going to relate to you, but I hope one day it will. Until we're about 35 years old, we are unable to project our own story into the future. We are unable to connect emotionally to the future story arc of our lives. We know, for example, how much we have changed in the past, but we don't really get it in our gut that we're going to keep changing in the future. So I don't know how old all of you are, but let's assume most of you are like 21. So you're 21. Probably think back when you were 18. Certainly think back when you were 16. Man, I have changed so much. I have grown so much. I have learned so much. But what you can't appreciate is that when you were 25, you're going to look back at when you were 21 and make the exact same statement. I have changed so much. It's hard to relate to the future changes that are going to come into our life. And so we think that we've arrived at a point and we're standing on that point, but we don't realize that you never stop changing in life. Now, the pace of change definitely slows over time, but you are not going to be the same person 3, 5, 10 years from now that you are today. And I'll give you an example of this. I was 17 years old, and I was driving in a car with my dad, and we were listening to the radio. I had the radio on the top 40 station, and I wish I could remember what song was playing. It would be a better story, but it was one of the most popular songs in the country. It had to be a top 5 song. And my dad said, what's this song, Aaron? I've never heard this one before. And I'm like, what? How is it possible that you've never heard this song? This is one of the most popular songs in the entire country. It's everywhere on the radio. And I remember thinking, I probably won't listen to top 40 music for the rest of my life, but I can never imagine there will be a day when I won't at least know what the most popular songs in the country are. Well, suffice it to say, that time came a long time ago. I couldn't name one single song that's popular today. I could not comprehend that I was going to be just like my dad at that future day. I'll tell you another story. We all know that we're going to get old and we're going to die, right? We all know that. But, when you're young, that's just like an intellectual fact. It has no connection. And so you go through life and, relatives die, and that's sad. My grandfather died. I'm like, that's very sad. I'm very sad that my grandfather died. Or, people are sick in the hospital, and I go visit them, and like, wow, it's tough. But then one day, it was around age 40, it was around Christmas time, I got a phone call from my mother. She's like, Aaron, your grandma's in the hospital. I need you and your brother and your aunt and uncle to come down here and take turns staying with her in the hospital because I have a job. I can't stay with her 24/7. So we all came down there. We're taking turns. And I'm in the hospital room with my grandmother. And I looked at her sitting there in that bed. And for the very first time in my life, I said, wait a minute. When I'm 93 years old and I'm laying in that hospital bed, who's going to come stay with me? And the answer is nobody. Nobody is going to be there for me. And that was a sobering thought. It had never really occurred to me in the emotional way. I could have thought the thought, but it didn't connect with me. And so, we make decisions when we are young that have profound, lifelong ramifications that we do not fully understand. And we do not fully understand how differently we are going to feel about things in the future. And so I think that's why, one of the reasons why, all human traditions sort of respected the traditions of older people, and like they were supposed to have this repository of wisdom. Part of it's just because they've lived through the story arc of life. They see where life is going. And so I say all that to say this: while there are exceptions, and you might be one of them, and while it's a free country, and I completely affirm everyone's right to make their own decision about their own lives, I would argue that the normative path for most men is marriage and children. And if you do not obtain them, one day you are going to feel it at some point, even if you can't imagine that that's possible now. And so think strongly about family.